as to why this group needs to pray about and think about it, and if they are interested, what should they do next?
We just encourage you, like Rick has pointed out, we're going to focus on leadership development and EQ over IQ, so your self-awareness, how do you impact people, how do you influence a room. We're going to focus in on that because you have the foundation of the classroom experience. We want to be the laboratory for you. So if your main focus is youth ministry, we're going to take all those leadership concepts that we unpack on Mondays, and you're going to go apply them Tuesday through the rest of the week. So these are things that you're going to learn immediately, put them right into practice. Again, we just want to build on the foundation that you guys have here. It really is that simple. So application, guys, it's really easy. If you go to the ccv.church website, if you didn't get a chance to meet with us at lunchtime, go on the ccv.church website. There's an online application there under the link Leadership Institute. Super, super simple to apply for. No obligation. There's no money involved with that. If God's putting that on your heart, please explore that. We can have some conversation.
Very good. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. Give him a good hand. This is the guy who's supposed to hug, the short guy. So there's been a few other CCV staff here that have been visiting, and one more of their staff members is going to come and share a short word with us. He's not short, he's actually much taller than Rick is. And so I want to welcome Travis Brown to the stage. Travis has a very interesting background in that he, like many of you out here, plays sports. He was a college quarterback, an All-American, 5 years in the NFL. He'll tell you more about that. Has 5 children. I don't know how all that comes together, but you'll probably hear about that too.
Yeah, that might not be for chapel.
Okay, not that, yeah. Not the how that happened, but, just, the experience of that. So welcome, Travis Brown.
I'm good. I do have 5 kids. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Just one quick comment. When you say I'm taller than Rick, that's not saying much. When you guys meet Rick, Rick's pretty short. But thank you for having us. This is my first time to West Point, Georgia. Okay, I'm a little confused though. Okay, it seems like every step I take, I enter a different time zone. Okay, it's crazy. We got on the plane yesterday in Phoenix, and it was I think it was 78 degrees, and we landed here and it's 40. So if you need any other reason to come out to Arizona, that's a good reason at this time. I'm just going to share a quick word tonight. I'm honored that I would even be asked to do this, so appreciate that. Let me give you a little bit of my background of why I'm here, and I do have a unique past. I'm not the normal Bible college grad entering into ministry. I grew up in a home. I was the youngest of 3 boys. Grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. My parents were divorced when I was 6. My dad got remarried. My mom got remarried. My mom is still married to my stepdad. My dad got divorced again. He's on his 3rd marriage. I grew up playing sports. My 2 older brothers were kind of football stars. They went on to play college football at Arizona State and then a small school in Missouri. I grew up playing football, but that wasn't my passion. I actually hated football growing up. I couldn't stand it. There's some people who play football that just love like slamming into each other and sweaty and like just hitting people. That wasn't me. That's for somebody else. That's gross. And so I loved basketball. And then my senior year of high school, something happened. I played quarterback for the very first time, and right then I knew. I was like, that's what I wanted to do. And so I got 2 scholarship offers coming out of high school. One was through Glendale Community College, which was right in Phoenix there. And then I got a partial scholarship offer up to Northern Arizona University. So I took that because that was a bigger school. And so I went up there. I was on tuition and books. Big deal when you get up to school and you're playing sports. I know there's a lot of athletes, a lot of football players in here. One of the big things when you first get there is, what number am I going to be? Right? It's not that important, but it is kind of important to you. So I'm waiting in line, I'm going through the line, and I'm a quarterback, so I can't have that bad of a number. They're not going to give me like 68. I'm sorry if there's number 68 in here, but for a quarterback, that would be cool. Okay, so I'm going through line, and they're handing out numbers, and I get to the spot where they hand me my number, and they hand me number 25. which if you know anything about football means we don't have a future for you. Okay, we don't have big plans for you. I was one of 9 quarterbacks in camp when I got to college. I redshirted my first year, and the quarterback at the time was a senior. And he went off, he was All-American, went and drafted by the Denver Broncos, won a couple Super Bowls, but when he left, I ended up winning the starting job, got put on full scholarship, played for 4 years. It was great, ups and downs, experienced a bunch. And then when I left NAU, I went into the NFL, did the whole training, did the whole combine thing. Draft day comes, and I didn't get drafted. But about 10 minutes after the draft, I signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I signed with the Eagles in April. I got married in July. I go to training camp for a month. My wife comes out. At the end of training camp, I get released. I get cut. We don't know what we're going to do. Now I don't have a job. Now I'm a husband and I don't have a job. And so they were going to sign me back onto their practice squad. There's a reason for all this story, by the way. They were going to sign me back onto their practice squad, but instead, I decided to sign on to Seattle Seahawks practice squad. They offered me a contract. So I flew from Philadelphia to Seattle, spent my whole rookie year in Seattle, ended up getting activated partially through the year. And then the next off season, I'm in Seattle, and that was a year they signed a guy by the name of Matt Hasselbeck. So Matt came in as our starting quarterback. I was with Matt about halfway through training camp. A guy by the name of Trent Dilfer came in as another quarterback. And essentially, Trent coming in was my exit out. And so now, they cut me. Okay, you follow me? Football, a little oblong ball. So they cut me in my second year in the NFL. 24 hours later, I signed with the Buffalo Bills. So now I'm flying from Seattle over to Buffalo, and I spend the 2001 season in Buffalo. I spend the 2002 season in Buffalo. I spend the 2003 season in Buffalo. Beginning of the 2004 season, I was in Buffalo. We're playing the Indianapolis Colts in a preseason game, and one of the Colts defensive ends goes right into my left knee. And I'm laying on the RCA Dome turf. They don't have the RCA Dome there anymore, but that's what it was then. And I was done in Buffalo. But the story's not done there. I ended up getting healthy that season. So in 2004, ironically enough, on week 10, I signed with the Indianapolis Colts. So now I'm back in Indy, okay, and I played in 2004, 2005 in Indy, and ended my career with 3 shoulder surgeries and elbow surgery. I had 2 concussions. I broke a finger. I've torn ligaments in my ankles and my knees, but it was a blast. It was so much fun. But my story is interesting because I didn't grow up a Christian. I told you I grew up in a home that, man, we really focused on sports. And that was kind of our God. I'd go to church on Sunday, but that really wasn't something to be taken seriously. And it wasn't until my rookie year in the NFL that God did something miraculous in my life. See, in Seattle, I got there, and God, for the very first time, maybe it was the first time I was looking, but God surrounded me with men who actually lived out the Word of God and took it seriously, who were believers. They weren't pastors. They were teammates. And what's interesting is I think that's how it happens most of the time. A lot of times we say, hey, why don't you just come to church so somebody else can lead you to Christ? But people are actually watching how you live your life. And that's how I came to Christ in the fall of 2000. And if you'd have told me back then that I'd be standing in front of you today speaking, and I'd be a pastor at a church, now I'm at CCV, I've been there for almost 10 years. What I do now, I was a campus pastor for many years, and now I oversee all the campuses. But if you'd have told me I'd be doing this back then, I'd have said, no way. No way. And I do, my wife and I have been married for, we just celebrated 18 years this past summer. We have 5 kids. Yeah, you can clap. I have a 16-year-old daughter, a 14-year-old daughter, which is awesome. I have an 11-year-old son, and then we thought we were done at 3, and we got a surprise 4th package, and it was twins. And so we had, Now, they are awesome. They're identical twin boys, and they are fantastic. And so, man, God's just done some incredible things. What I want to talk to you very briefly tonight about is something that I think is a major issue, maybe the number one issue not just in the church, not just as believers, but I think almost as a society. If you went back into my journals over the last several years, you would see this theme that kept coming up. And it's the issue of focus. What are we focusing on? I'm going to read you this passage in Hebrews chapter 12, starting in verse 1. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." Let me paint a little picture for you right now. If you've ever been to an NFL game before, you might understand this. But pretend it's September, and I'll just give you a date, September 8, 2002, in Orchard Park, New York. Okay, it's the opening day of the NFL season. It's electric. If you've ever been to an NFL game, you know it's electric. But if you've ever been to an opening day of an NFL game, especially in Buffalo, New York, because that's all they have there, it is crazy electric, okay? I was leaving practice on Tuesday for a Sunday game, and the parking lot is literally full, not just full of cars, full of people tailgating on Tuesday. The game is until Sunday, and they were there all week. And the day of the game was unbelievable, right? It's a beautiful Western New York day. The stadium is rocking. There's music playing. There's vendors everywhere. Okay, the fans are filling it up. We have a well-known artist come and sing the national anthem. Right at the end of the national anthem, 3 F-16 jets fly right over the stadium, and it shakes. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unreal if you ever been in a situation like that. And in the midst of that, there's two teams that are getting ready to play, and there's players that are on the field, and there's all these things that are going on. But they're not there for all these things. In fact, it would be really harmful for them to be focused on all of these things. It would be easy for them to focus on all these things, but it would be very, very harmful for them to be focused on all these things that are going on around them. What they need to do is focus on the right thing. They need to focus on what their role calls for. They need to focus on what they're actually there for. Let me tell you something. We live in a society today that is distracted. And there are things that are coming at us from everywhere. In fact, the light's kind of bright in my face right now, so I might not be able to see all hands. But be honest. Like, be real with me. How many of you have been able to not look at your cell phone for the last 29 minutes? Okay? 10%. Okay? Everybody else feels guilty. Notice the faculty didn't raise their hand either. And they're checking their cell phones too. It's not just like a young person thing. We are in a distracted world, aren't we? We're in a world that is sending all these messages at us all the time, and we are in a world that, man, we don't even know where to focus. We don't even know what to do, but let me tell you something. The world is vying for your attention. Right? I mean, on your phones, you have all the things coming at you. You drive down the road, you have everything that's trying to get your attention. Buy this, do that. The world is vying for your attention, but your world needs your attention. And your world doesn't exist on a phone. Your world doesn't really even exist on a screen. What's amazing about your world is, man, you're sitting next to your world. You interact with your world. You're face to face with your world. There's people that God has put in your lives that, man, that's your world. And they need your attention. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. A couple stories to finish this up. Some people try to argue with me sometimes, like, man, I can't focus. I can't even, like, there's so many things that I don't have the ability to focus. And now we've diagnosed everybody with ADD, like, oh, they can't focus. And I would argue that I came from an industry, it's like a $5 billion a year industry, and the industry exists because you can focus. Let me tell you how. If you've been to an NFL game, you might know this. Anybody know how much actual game action, like when a play is running in an NFL game, you know how many minutes there is of actual game action on average? Anybody want to guess? Somebody said 28. What is that? Say 7. What's that? 23. There is actually, on average, 7 minutes of action in an NFL game. 7 minutes. But we don't watch it for 7 minutes, do we? It's a 60-minute game. We got 4 15-minute quarters, but we don't have just 60 minutes that we watch, do we? No. We got to stretch it out to a 3-hour game, don't we? We have 7 minutes of action now at a 3-hour game so that we can have commercials and we can sell stuff and we can do all this stuff and have halftime. But it's not even a 3-hour experience for most people that go to a game. Because I've been on those buses that arrive really early. And I see people that get to football games like 4 hours before the game so they can tailgate in the parking lot. And you know what they do for 4 hours in the parking lot? They watch like highlights and people talk about the game that they're getting ready to go watch. So now it's not a 3-hour experience, now it's a 7-hour experience. But then after the game, you know what happens? Because I see it. People walk out to their cars and they're like, you know what? Man, it's traffic. We're going to hang out here. We're going to hang out and tailgate for another hour. We're going to turn the radio on. And you know what we're going to do when we turn the radio on? We're going to listen to people talk about the game that we were just at, that we were just watching. Okay, so now it's not a 7-hour experience. Now it's like a 9-hour experience. And then some guys, you guys know what it's like. Some of you guys get home from that experience. And what do you do first thing? You turn the TV on so you can see highlights of the game that you were at, that you listen to everybody analyze in the car. And now you get home, and now you've turned a 7-minute experience into an 11-hour experience. Don't tell me we can't focus on something. We have the ability to focus. The question is, what are you focusing on? In that passage, God called us to do 2 things. He said to run. And you were created so uniquely. God has called you to run your race. And the second thing He's called you to do is to fix your eyes on Jesus. So my question to you is, where's your eyes? What are you focused on? There's some things in your world right now that hasn't been getting attention because you've been focused on things that don't really matter. I'm guilty. I'm guilty. But God has a unique race for every single one of us if we would just focus. But not just focus on anything, focus on the right thing. Let me close with this story. A couple months ago, I was with my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, at a volleyball tournament. Any of you that play volleyball, there's this travel thing going on. And the place that we were playing in this tournament was at a facility in Scottsdale and Phoenix area. And it kind of was sitting up. It was on the edge of the city. And when you stood outside, you could see kind of the whole city. It was beautiful, beautiful day. It was clear. You could see downtown. You could see the mountains. I mean, it was awesome. And so in between these games, all the team would come out and parents would come out and we'd hang out until we had to go play another game. And I'm standing there with another dad. And we're looking out over the city. And I just made the comment, I was like, man, how about this view? Isn't this amazing? And he says to me without even hesitating, he's like, yeah, jeez, I can't believe we have to look at these power lines. Well, where we were standing, about a mile away, were some power lines that were running through. And I thought to myself, man, is that all you see right now? Then I started thinking, that's the problem with the church. That's the problem with so many people in our world today. There's so much beauty God has given us to see, and He's doing some incredible things. And sometimes all we see are the power lines that are in our way. All we see is the negativity that's coming. All we see is our own hopeless circumstance, and we miss all that God's doing. And let me tell you something, God is doing some amazing things. He's doing some amazing things at this place. He's doing some amazing things on your teams. He's doing some amazing things in this university. He's doing some amazing things all around the world. You know why? Because He's God. And we get to focus on Him. We get to worship Him. And there's no greater privilege than that, than to focus on God and run our race. And so I would encourage you today to let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. Let's pray. Lord, I am so thankful that You're our God. I know there's some people in here tonight who, they don't know You. They keep coming to chapel, or maybe they're here for the first time, or maybe they've come to this university and they hear messages about You, but they don't really know You. I just pray for them. I pray for their souls. I pray that they would make that bold decision to give their lives and to surrender their lives to You. Lord, it's a privilege to worship You. It's a privilege to fix our eyes on You. Lord, I just pray that we would see You work in incredible ways the rest of this night. We love You. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Travis. Awesome. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. I told you at the beginning that we were going to take a little bit of time before we leave tonight, and we've got plenty of time, not even close to 8 o'clock yet. And we want to do something a little bit unique as a way for you to maybe begin your week of break and also your week of Thanksgiving and gratitude. And here's how we're going to do it. Off on the sides of the stage, on both sides, it's identical on both sides. There are what we are calling participation worship stations. And so we're going to have some music playing, and in just a few minutes we'll all stand, and while the music's playing, you can sing along with the worship. And at any time, this isn't anything you're forced to do. We're not going in lines, we're not dismissing rows. This is just you wanting to participate with God in a moment of worship and honor to God, or honesty before God, or asking God for His help in your life. And so we've created these tables, these stations, as places that you can come and do that. So let me explain just a little bit, and then we'll get into this. So I want you to understand what we've got. So on closest to each side of the stage, we have a small table set up with communion. And we're going to have some of our guests from CCV at those tables, and they're going to serve you communion if you would like to come and participate in communion. And it's just very simple. It's an act of honoring the grace, love, and goodness of Jesus through His death on the cross for you. And it's a way for you tonight to say, maybe for the 1,000th time in your life, maybe for the first time in your life, Jesus, I want Your love for me to be fresh now, right now. And so there will be little wafers there that represent the body of Jesus, and they'll give you that, and then you can take it and dip it into the juice, and that represents the blood that Jesus shed for us, and you can participate in communion. And if you want to do that, you can come and do that quietly, and then you could just go back and stand at your seat. That would be fine. You could also participate in a second station if you wanted to. And that would be the next tables we have out, or what we're calling our commitment to God stations. And you've been hearing in chapel, we've been talking about this, the rock or the sand or the sponge, and how the rock can sometimes represent something heavy when it's put in water. And that can be, for some of us, our relationship with God is just heavy. It's just hard. God just feels like He's always just weighing us down. And so you could take a rock at that table as a moment to say, God, You really seem heavy to me, but I just want to own up to the fact that this is where I'm at with You, and I don't want to stay here. And there's little rocks at that table in a big bucket, and you could put that in the water to represent that confession, that openness. There's also some sand there. You could put sand in the water, and sand just represents how, for some of us, God is all around our life. We hear about him, we think about him, we come to chapel, but it's just not very important. It just kind of dissipates in our life. Just doesn't have much of an effect on us. And you could put some sand in the water as a way to say before God, honestly, God, you're just kind of all around my life, but I want more than that. That could be a commitment moment with sand. There's also some little tiny sponges there, and sponges will just absorb the water. And it's a way, could be a way for you to put a sponge in the water saying, God, I want to soak up your love, goodness, grace, power, and strength in my life. And tonight, I want to make a commitment before we leave for Thanksgiving week to say, Jesus, I want more of you to saturate me. So that's the commitment table. And then the third table, the furthest one out from the stage on both sides, is a prayer table. And the prayer table is an invitation for you to pray two kinds of prayers if you would like. There are some thank you cards there on the table. And if you would literally like to take a pen or pencil and write a gratitude, a thanks to God for something in your life, a blessing, a relationship, something that's happened in your life that you believe is worth telling God thanks for. You can write that and then just place it in a basket as a way to give God, to start Thanksgiving week with thanks. There's also at that table, there's some little candles, and we would invite you if you have a need, a burden, there's something hard going on in your life, maybe a friend, a family member, a struggle, a challenge, something you're not sure how to deal with. There's cards that you could write a prayer to God. Say, God, I need your help with this. And you could write exactly what it is. And then place it under little candles on that table and light a candle as a way to offer that prayer up to God for what that thing is. So we're going to have some station hosts that are going to be standing by the tables. If you have any questions, they can help you with that. I'd like to invite them to make their way to our tables right now. And I'd like to ask our CCV friends who are going to be serving communion to go to the table. So let me just make sure we're real clear on this. So we're going to have probably 10, 15 minutes of music, and we're going to just worship with song like we do at a lot of our chapels. And you're not required to leave where you're standing to participate, but you're invited to. And if you would like to come, and you could do that during the first song, you could wait till the second song or the third song. There's no rush, there's no pressure. This is just a way for you to participate with God in worship at your choice. And if you want to participate, when you finish at one of the tables, or you could go to two of the tables, or you could go to all three of the tables, if you would go very quietly back to where you are right now and just stand or sit where you're at, out of respect for everybody else. This isn't like we're going to leave after you finish a station. We'll all leave together here in a little bit. This isn't like I go back and start a conversation with other people. Like, let's just make this a place where we kind of respect the fact that God's presence is here, and we're giving space for God to work in our hearts and in our minds. And we're respecting each other enough to say, maybe somebody sitting near me is thinking about what they would like to participate in tonight, and I'm not going to distract them by talking. So, does that make sense? So we're going to stand and just start singing some music. You're invited to move quietly if you would like to, and then make your way back. And then in a little bit, we'll all be dismissed together. Okay? John, lead us in some music. Y'all sing. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken.
We're so glad that you were here in chapel tonight, and let's take just a moment and thank our friends from Christ Church in the Valley for leading. You know, they have to love Jesus pretty well if they would leave that weather in Phoenix to come to this weather in West Point. So thank you guys very much for being here. Thank you all for leading us in worship tonight, and everybody who participated in our service. We're glad that you're here. As always, it would be really great if some of you could take like 5 minutes and help us put some chairs up so we could get out of here quickly tonight. Thank you for being here. Let's do our point benediction together. We believe in God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
By grace we are in His presence.
We believe He calls us to be like Him.
By grace His Spirit empowers us.
We believe He calls us to love one another.
By grace we promise that we will.
We believe He calls us into the world to be Jesus to those around us.
Through faith we will show Christ to the world.
We, His children, are here to serve.
We are one university.
Just the white chairs, not the brown ones, please.